One of the biggest changes we've made to our cruising gear this season is actually upgrading to this 12-foot long aluminum tender. What we have been using in years past was a nesting dinghy. It was a two-part dinghy that I built out of plywood and epoxy, and that was a great little dinghy. You could row it, motor it, or sail it, and it was actually powered by only a 3-horsepower outboard motor. It's pretty convenient because I could just take that small motor and lift it on and off of the boat without any kind of, you know, ropes or a crane or anything like that. But since we now have this bigger, heavier boat, it required that bigger, heavier, more powerful outboard motor. So to deal with this motor, I actually had to install a much more substantial motor bracket. And that's what you're looking at right here. This is a motor bracket from a company called Simple System Marine, and this is known as the Better Bracket. This is a very strong, very beefy motor bracket. And as you can see, we currently have it mounted on what I call the granny bars that are on either side of our mast. These are known as, you know, mast pulpits. But this to us seemed like the best place to mount this motor bracket, because when we take the motor off, we actually lift it up with a halyard, and then since we're using a halyard, it naturally wants to swing in towards the mast. So somewhere around the mast here is what made sense. So that's where we put it. And to make this thing work, I actually had to install this additional strut right here. As you can see on the stock mast pulpit, it's just standing on these 2 feet. Those are the only, you know, mounting surfaces to the boat. But since we were actually hanging this 100-pound outboard motor on this thing, I needed to basically support it. And we did that by just using this bimini fitting and these this tubing here. So this is 1-inch tubing, bimini fittings, and then kind of, you know, more bimini fittings. And I also added this that other T-rail there. So that really beefed up this arrangement. And now we can transport that outboard motor on this mast pulpit without it really, you know, leaning in and out as the boat heels over. The other thing that I did in installing these new bimini pipes was it added the lower mount necessary for this bracket to clamp onto. So you can see the U-bolt here on the back side of the bracket, and it just engages with this 1-inch bimini tubing here. Now, in addition to just being a really substantial and strong bracket, this thing actually has some really cool features built into it. It's got this track here, for instance. This is where that U-bolt rides, and that will accommodate various mounting locations, because this thing is probably, you know, most easily installed on the aft, what do you call it, push pit of a boat. And those typically have, you know, a pair of rails, an upper one and a lower one. Because that spacing between those rails will vary, this U-bolt can slide inside this track to accommodate those different widths. Now what I have here is a 1-inch piece of tubing on the bottom and an 1.25-inch piece of tubing on the top that makes up this mast pulpit. But this Better Bracket bolts right up to it, no problem at all. This thing is made from very thick, completely solid starboard and stainless steel components, and it's got this, you know, upper cap on here to keep the motor feet from digging into this softer starboard. And also it's put together with really minimal tools. I think it's just a 7/16 ratchet you need for a couple of nuts down here on the U-bolt, and then a Phillips head screwdriver for these this pair of what I believe are called barrel bolts. And that's it. One other nice thing about this Better Bracket is that it is extremely low profile. You can see that only about a 1/2 inch is sticking up over the top of this pipe. And that is nice because some of these brackets actually stand up really proud, sometimes 2 or 3 inches above the pipe, and that just makes for unnecessary lifting and maneuvering of these big, heavy, awkward outboard motors. So that is the new bracket that we're using for our bigger, heavier, more powerful outboard motor that's needed for this new dinghy of ours. So yeah, we really like bragging on products and companies that we really believe in, that you know, we've come across along the way, and this one certainly fits in that category. Again, this is the Better Bracket by Simple System Marine.